Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. Today it's a slightly different video, as it's not a Let's Play video, Lies of P, and it's not Dark Souls modding, so we'll see how this goes. But, well, I do have the Bloodborne outfit on. Pretty cool mod, pretty easy mod that I'll link in the description. It was just a cool thing I found on Nexus Mods. I had done it during the demo as well. But someone put out a different version. You'll see like the back cloth doesn't react, so I do wonder if they'll update it and try to like make it react better to cloth physics. But boy, that's a whole thing, because they took it from Bloodborne, obviously. I think it looks pretty cool overall. Gets the job done. The jokes of Bloodborne at home, which of course is very much inaccurate for this game. But I just wanted to talk really quickly about like. I'm halfway through the game now. Like the character I'm on here is a separate one from the character I've been playing the game with on the channel, with like 2 videos thus far, I think, whenever this airs. And I have more recorded, I just haven't edited it. But yeah, I'm like halfway now, apparently, from what I looked at after I finally beat a boss that was completely ass blasting me hard. And I loved it. So now I feel like I'm halfway through. I'll give my halfway review of the game, because of course it could change by the after I finish the game. I could have a different opinion, perhaps. Maybe it gets way different, and so I kind of wanted to document it. Here's where my thoughts are, just in case the game goes a different direction. So currently, I'm not sure how many hours I'm in, but I basically was like. The good sign I had is that I was like, I want to keep playing this game so much that I'm gonna make a second character. I don't want to just record. I need to play this game. I keep thinking about it, and so that's kind of the start of my halfway review. Is that I'm utterly addicted. I can't get enough of this game. Like, it's frustrating me. It's challenging me. I would arguably put it up there with any of the From Software games in terms of difficulty, for sure. Like, I think thus far, Sekiro, considering I finished Sekiro and I haven't finished this game, Sekiro has some more difficult bosses still, right? But this game is still like, there's a half to go. So the difficulty in this game has been steadily increasing, and sometimes going up a lot of what it like requires of you, right? Let me switch over to a cooler looking outfit I just got, which I think looks so sick. But yeah, like, it's honestly one of the most difficult, Souls related genre games I've ever played, which, to be fair, is mostly just From Software games. and this. As for Soulslikes, technically people consider Wolong Fallen Dynasty and the Neo games, they consider them Soulslikes. I don't know. I tend to think they're just more action games, more of like your Ninja Gaiden. Like, there obviously are RPG mechanics and like leveling up and stats, and I don't know. I think for me, those games, because they're all from Team Ninja. Like, I finished Wolong Fallen Dynasty, and I did enjoy my time. I really did. I kept playing it. I was really having a lot of fun. But at the end of it, even while I was playing it, I was like, I know this is still like a 7 out of 10, and that's fine. I think 7 out of 10s. People shit on that, but I think 7 out of 10s are great. We should have more 7 out of 10s. Like, we should not be shitting on them and saying that, oh, what a complete failure and a flop. Like, not every game is going to be a 10 out of 10. We need to get out of that idea, because, these developers, it's become like a system now where if the developers don't hit a certain Metacritic, like, the publisher is just going to completely shut them. And I think that's a shame. I think we should go back to like the Xbox 360 PS3 days, where there were a ton of 7 out of 10s, but they were pretty fun, right? Like, I think we can have fun games that are 7 out of 10s that aren't life changing, and that's fine. I guess that's kind of where I come into it, where I'm like, not every single one has to be a From Software level banger, right? Like, but you know, I do have criticism for the Team Ninja games. I think they have easily the worst level design I've seen in any related Souls genre game. Like, it's just so bad. And I hate to say that, but like, it's just genuinely very flat, and there's nothing terribly interesting. And there's no shortcuts, which is fine, because not all the Souls games have, you know, do the shortcuts, you know, a lot, right? But interesting level design that piques your curiosity of what's around the corner, and they just don't have it. Like, it's just flat usually, and sometimes there's a little verticality, but not a lot. Like, I remember playing Wolong Fallen Dynasty, and I got through it, and at that point I hadn't actually finished Sekiro yet. My game may have crashed? Oh. Well, that's interesting. That's the first time I've ever had any issue with the game. Well, that was weird. Alright, that was just a giant hiccup. I'll leave that in, I guess, because I've never had that happen yet, but weird. No, at that point, I hadn't played Sekiro completely. I had tried like 4 times, and I gave up because I was like, I'm not good enough for this. And I then finally dove into Sekiro and didn't give up and got good, right? And I went, oh wow, this is just unbelievably better than Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Like, the parry mechanic, the exploration, the combat, the story, the world, just everything, the music, it's on a different level, right? And yeah, I don't know. So for me, the long-winded way of saying that the Team Ninja games, I don't know. I guess I just don't really put them in the Souls-like category, because I think they're missing some of the elements that really put them there. And I'm glad that people really love the Neo games in particular. Like, those always come up, right? And I think that's great. I don't know. I enjoyed them for 20 hours, and then I just didn't like it. I thought by that point it became way too much about diving into a giant stat screen of unbelievably, there's too many stats and too many things you're upgrading and too many different weapons and too many different power attacks and too many, it became overwhelming. And it's weird that both Neo games did like at exactly the same like 20-hour mark, because you're kind of doing these missions, like they're mission based, and the missions by the 20-hour point I was like, dog, these are boring. These are just not, this isn't the sort of exploration world that I wanted. Like, I like that in the Souls games, you know, obviously there are load screens, you know, if you know, warp to a place or not, but you can keep traveling as long as you've, you know, unlocked the pathway and beaten the bosses, but you can just keep going. And I just, in those games, you know, picking on the menu and going, oh, I'm gonna go there, and not that mission based on its own is necessarily bad. It's like, I'm also playing on Thor, right? And it's mission based, but the missions are fucking awesome and fun, and the boss encounters are sick, you know? And so, I don't know. The Neo games had some cool bosses, but I found the combat. I remember I tried going back to Neo a few months ago, because I was like, what the hell? You know what? Let's try Neo 2 again. Let's pick it up. And immediately I was like, oh, I don't like this. Wow. This feels, the combat feel, maybe you just have to get used to it again, but I was like, I genuinely dislike this so much that I'm just absolutely not gonna, I can't play this. This is not fixable by rebinding anything. Also, I'm completely destroying these enemies because I have a +6 weapon. But anyway, Liza P, I don't mean to shit on Team Ninja for a while, but Lies of P, thus far, the level design has been fine. You know, like, I do think it comes off as pretty obvious, like, if that makes sense. Like, where you see a thing and you go, the good thing is they're not hiding it. Like, you'll see a door and you go, oh, that's a future shortcut. And I will say the benefit here is that they're not actually trying to hide that. Like, the door very clearly has two sides to it, and you can tell which one is the actual, like, accessible door, and the other side will, like, electrocute you or just give you a little shock. And so they're not trying to hide that. Like, that's a very video gamey thing that doesn't seem like in world, but it's also, I guess I give them a pass because they're not trying to hide it, right? Like, it's not like they were trying to make it not easy to notice, but it ended up being noticeable anyway. They're very clearly just telling you, yeah, like, there are shortcuts, and you can unlock them, and they look the same, and I think that's fine, right? Like, it's not as good as how the Souls game, like, nothing I think will meet Dark Souls 1, right? Nothing is going to hit that level of shortcuts and winding back on itself. Unfortunately, we may never see that again, to be honest. Like, you know, even From Software moved away from that. And I would assume there's a reason they moved away from it. I think it was obviously incredibly difficult to develop. And, you know, perhaps you sacrifice things by focusing on that style, right? And I think that's the most telling thing, is that even From Software went away from it. So, but in this style of, I think the more traditional is like the DS3 style, where it is linear, yes, but there are shortcuts, you know, here and there. And I think it works, you know. I think that's a pretty, you know, pretty good mechanic. Like DS2, I think, is a similar style, where at the beginning there's a decent number of options, but obviously, like, in terms, there's not really like shortcuts in Dark Souls 2. I don't think that much. It's been a while since I played it. I guess as a while, I mean, like, you know, a month, but they focus a lot less on. But yeah, like, this game is pretty straightforward. You know, you just kind of run to the next area, and you'll get a shortcut, and then boom, you get to your next bonfire, right? So, you know, I'd say it's DS3 style in that way. And I'm okay with that. I'm glad they're bonfires and not lamps from Bloodborne. So I think for this next portion, I'll compare them more to the different Souls games that they're very clearly inspired by. And I know some people will say, oh, well, didn't they just steal that? And I'm like, I mean, it is mimicry, and certainly in some ways. But, like, obviously, they have the prosthetic arm from Sekiro. But they've done it where there's some really sick upgrades and awesome, like, you can upgrade each specific different arm to have its own little skill tree, you know, a minimal skill tree. And, like, there's 4 upgrades, and you can kind of choose and use a consumable to do that. And so it's one of those things where, yes, they sort of were inspired by the prosthetic arm, but they've done it in a good way where I feel they've done enough to differentiate it, right? And that's kind of, I think, that's their blueprint, right? Is that, yes, very clearly they love From Software, and they've done their homework, and they've studied. And I know some people would see that as a negative, but I personally think that that's great. I think that's where a lot of Soulslikes fail, is that they don't understand what makes these games work. And thus far, the game has completely worked on that level for me, where when I'm not playing it, I'm thinking about it, and thinking about what the next challenge is going to be, right? And that's the same feeling I had for my first playthrough of DS2, DS3, DS1, Bloodborne. I was consistently going, dude, what is next? Like, what are they going to throw at me? What enemies, what am I going to have to face, you know? And they've given me that same feeling. And that's to be commended, I think, because not every game does that. Like, sometimes I just would get exhausted. I think it's like Neo, I'd be like, oh, God, what are they going to throw at me next? And not in, like, a good way. I was like, God damn it. Like, the last boss is just so I just didn't like it. You know, I don't know. Imagine if like all bosses were gimmick bosses, which is not what Neo is, but the feeling of like, God, I just did not like that. And thus far, I have not encountered that with Lies of P. Like, I've had insanely difficult boss battles. Like, there's one that on my second run through, I had way more trouble than I did on my first run through that you guys saw on the channel, which I don't think that I've posted that yet. But I beat it in like 10 tries. But in my second run through, I think we were at like 50. And so that's just crazy. But I like that, depending on my build and also just doing it again, like, it was different and more difficult. And sometimes it might be easier, sometimes it might be more difficult. Like, that's kind of the one thing that people complain with on Souls games, and I don't really agree with, where they go, oh, it's boss RNG. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. But it's also like, AI programming is difficult. And I would much prefer that the enemy is unpredictable and doesn't always do a linear moveset that is identical between attempts. I would hate that. That would suck. Like, that'd just be boring. Because I'd go, oh, I know exactly the moves it's going to do. No, I would much rather want to learn the overall broad moveset, but not know the order of the moves necessarily. Like, there are obviously ones that at certain health levels, you know, could happen at certain times, right? 100%. But I don't want to know every single time every move it's going to do. I want to look at the tells and then feel accomplished because I looked and I went, oh, okay, the arm moved that way. Oh, got it, it's that attack, but it might look like a different attack. And that's the fun of Souls games. Like, it just is. So people complaining about that, I'm like, I think you're missing the point. That, like, that is a key, that's just a key foundational mechanic, right? And so, you know, that makes sense to me. What does it have in connection to Bloodborne? Because people have been making this out to be Bloodborne 2 or Bloodborne remade, and I'm like, well, no, it's not. Like, no, stop saying that. Like, that is just undeniably false. The only thing it has from Bloodborne is the rally mechanic, but only on chip damage from when you block, and you don't perfect block. So, like, if you miss your perfect block and you get hit, you'll have, you know, you have time, a little bit of time to get that health back. But that's the only time you have the rally mechanic. So, okay, then what else does it have from Bloodborne? Well, you know, you do have, like, when you're locked on, you'll do a dash instead of a roll. And, like, okay, that's certainly, that's something. But beyond that, like, they go, oh yeah, but it really looks like Bloodborne. I'm like, honestly, having played Bloodborne, you know, like, at least 3 or 4 times, I need to play it more often, but God, could we put it on PC? And I don't know, I think that's overblown. Like, I think this aesthetic actually has a lot more in common with a BioShock in terms of, like, steampunk style of old-timey, like, it's not, I don't know, I just don't think it actually looks like Bloodborne that much. I do think sometimes there's a slight visual homage, sure, absolutely. You know, and then as far as, you know, you're mostly one-handing weapons, and you kind of have, like, your, you know, you could say in Bloodborne you have, like, your gun. So, like, right now I do actually have my gun on the left, you know, hand here. But, you know, that's also kind of like a Sekiro thing, right? You have your prosthetic arm, but then you're two-handing. The other thing is the game does incentivize you to be aggressive. And yeah, you could say that's a Bloodborne thing. I also would say that actually has a lot of crossover with Sekiro. That hesitation is defeat, right? And I think that's more so where they're pulling it from. And because in this game, they specifically have, like, with bosses, you know, you're hitting them, and with enemies, I believe, too, but you're hitting them, and if you basically are like that Dark Souls player where you know, you have your shield and you have your little spear, and you're just going in to poke a little bit, and then you back off. This game doesn't Well, it doesn't incentivize you to do that at all. It basically goes, okay, well, you can try that. I mean, there is no shield other than like a prosthetic one, and it blows up, so it's not the same thing. But basically, the enemy's health will regen. The health that you've caused them to lose, they will actually start to regen that. So they have their own rally mechanic, but not really a rally mechanic. It's more just that that portion will come back if you are not aggressive. And so I like that they're like, go for it. Hesitation is defeat. Be up in their face. Do not let them breathe and have no fear. And so to me, that's more of a Sekiro thing than a Bloodborne thing, personally. But you could say it's both, you know. I just think people are putting too much on the comparisons to Bloodborne. I think it's From Software in general. Like this game is a love letter to From Software. So if you love From Software, like you're gonna see these things and go, I recognize them. I see where their inspiration was. I don't agree that, because that was my fear, is that I'm going to see them and then say, yeah, but I've seen them done better. So like, why would I enjoy this? Because I've seen them be done to perfection, right? Or not really considered perfection, but the OG, right? Like the thing that is being mimicked or emulated. So why would I want the emulation when I can just have the original? And I have been proven wrong on that, where this, as I'm playing Lies of P, I feel like I'm just playing Lies of P. I don't feel like I'm playing an emulation. I really don't. Ooh, I need to shoot down this sign, actually. I got a note about that. This is actually really good that I'm here. Let's shoot. Wait, was that not the thing I need to shoot? Pretty sure that's the thing I need to shoot. Did it not drop an item? Or was that on a different character? It might have been on a different character. Damn. Huh. Well, alright. Do I need to shoot it for... Oh, there we go. View the details. Address, Elysian Boulevard 221B. A key is enclosed. Oh. Okay, cool. So that's a little nice side thing I hadn't done. So it's actually cool. I'm getting something done while I'm doing this. But yeah, no, I think people need to meet this game on its own terms. I think when they're complaining about it, they're consistently going, oh yeah, but in Bloodborne I can do this. Or in Sekiro I can do this. Like they're going, yeah, but I prefer the Sekiro perfect parry. And I'm like, yeah, that's... Or the Sekiro just parry in general. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's fine, but like, this isn't Sekiro. So, go play Sekiro. Like, that's just legitimately, go play Sekiro. Yeah, let's go back to the entrance. And because Sekiro's a masterpiece. It also just crossed 10 million sales last night. They announced that, which is amazing, and it is an absolute masterpiece. So, if you haven't played it, go play Sekiro. Even if you're, as I was, a Dark Souls person, and I was like, oof, I don't think I'm good enough for Sekiro. No, I was good enough. It just was a huge challenge, and it's on my Mount Rushmore of gaming achievements is some of those bosses. Like, that definitely requires the most skill, I think, of almost any boss or any game, honestly. Like, it was just what an experience, you know. And so yeah, I don't know, meet this game on its own terms. Don't be consistently doing that, because I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Because this game, as I've been playing it, it plays differently than any of them. This is a hybrid of everything they've learned from Software, which I think as From Software fans, I think we should be in favor of that, of people learning from Software, because we love From Software. We are truly passionate about what they create, and if other teams can learn things from them and potentially move the genre forward, because From Software is always going to be doing what they're doing, creating amazing games on their own, and what other people create isn't going to change that. From Software, they don't need any inspiration. I think they're on a god tier level that they're doing their own thing. So I don't think any other game is going to take away from what they do. But we can get some really interesting Souls genre games. And I think this one in particular, from any Souls-like I've ever played, because most of them I kind of am like 7 out of 10 on, or 6 out of 10, right? This one feels that they understand what makes it work, and they truly, truly love From Software. Like, they themselves are fans and passionate and played the shit out of these games like I do, and that we do on this channel, right? That's the feeling I get, is that they 1000% love this game, or love, you know, the games made by From Software. And that's the only way that you would make this. You know, I had someone in my Twitter comments, you know, go, oh, well, it's just a copy paste, you know, they just stole it, and they just stole all the mechanics, and, you know, it's just lazy. It's just lazy development, you know? And obviously that's just incredibly ignorant and wrong, and they don't understand how game development works, and they don't understand how much work went into making this game. Years of work. Also, it's sort of a backhanded insult to From Software, saying that somehow it's so easy to copy their formula, which, no, it's not. Why do you think there's been so many Souls-likes that personally, it's an opinion, that I don't think are terribly good. I think they're fine. And I think they missed the point of what made the Souls games, you know, what they continue to be today. And I think that's a disservice to say it's so easy to copy. It's absolutely not. That's why there's so many games that can't play even as well as DS3. Like, I remember I was like, I'm excited for Lords of the Fallen next month. But I remember watching like the 10 minutes of gameplay they put out one of these days, and I remember looking at it and the animations and the stagger of the enemies and sort of like your animations, and it just was pretty clear to me where I'm like, yeah, DS3 still does it better. And that's kind of crazy to me, that like you can put millions and millions of dollars. Now, this is of course without me playing Lords of the Fallen. I could be completely wrong, right? That's just me looking at the gameplay and how the animations like sort of functioned, right? So it could be completely wrong, and I'm hoping the final game is awesome, right? I don't wish for any game to be bad. I don't get the point of hoping games are bad, unless the developers like murder children or something. Like, I guess I just don't get the reasoning of going, God, I hope this game sucks. I don't get that. I see that in the gaming sphere a lot, where they're like, sometimes it's console war related, but sometimes there's some FromSoft fans that are a little toxic about it, where they're a little gatekeepy about other developers being in the Souls-like genre. And I think that's just kind of weird. Like, I don't think there's a need to complain about it. I think like if you don't want to play anything but From Software games, well then don't. But I guess I just don't understand the like, I don't think I'm gonna play that. They're just ripping off From Software. It's like, I think if you play the game, you're gonna know that's not true. I think from afar you can make an uninformed opinion, but I think playing the game, and this is as someone who's modded Dark Souls games for hundreds and hundreds of hours, so I've been in those worlds and sort of looking at the mechanics. Not as good as, you know, other people, admittedly, but I've looked at the mechanics in the game world and how they're crafting it. And I'm here to tell you that Lies of P absolutely has the juice. This has the juice. I don't need to put it on a list of like, is it better than Bloodborne? Like, I don't give a shit about that. I don't, because I just don't think, what's the benefit of doing that? I think Bloodborne is such a unique product that I don't think it has any comparison. I don't think there's anything that's going to put on a level with Bloodborne. But I guess like I'm also just not terribly interested in that, right? This has actually just now become a diatribe against some of the things in the gaming community that I think are a little unhealthy. And so hopefully you're here for that. I don't know. I've just always found that really weird, that there's always been this portion of Souls fans that, or just From Software fans, that will basically go, man, Bloodborne just absolutely shits on all of Dark Souls. Or Dark Souls, ooh, it's so much better than Bloodborne and Sekiro. And I'm like, dog. Or the biggest one, which is like, ooh, Dark Souls 2 sucks. And I prefer Dark Souls 3, and Dark Souls 1's way better than Dark Souls 3. And I was like, dog, do you guys want to be unhappy? Shouldn't we look at it from the angle that we should be happy that there are this many From Software games, and they're all just absolute bangers, and they all have different qualities and different gripes I have about each one, but to just nitpick and pick like teams of which From Software game do I love the most and which one can I shit on, that's just so weird. Why would we do that? That's just, I also don't see the point. Like, why don't we have an appreciation for what they've made instead of just focusing on, oh, I hate this one, and anyone who likes Dark Souls 2 is a fucking loser. And there's just some shit that I'm like, dude, I don't get it. I don't understand people like that. I think that's just such a negative mindset. And I've modded every one of the Souls games. You know, the 3, obviously. Well, no, Demon Souls too, yeah. God. Sorry, Zen's DES, if you're watching this. I do forget Demon Souls sometimes, because it's not in the same world, and it's not Dark Souls, and it's a different IP, and, you know. I think they're such beautiful products, and the product of their development. And they all have issues of rushed development, or they had to scrap things, or the cut content. Like, all of them have a pretty crazy development behind the scenes from what I've heard. And I don't know. I think we should be championing them and focusing more on the positives than just creating tribes of which Souls game we like the most. I don't know. I think that's just such an absolute waste of energy. Personally, and that kind of goes into Lies of P, where there's just been some discourse about it, and I'm just like, dog, this is a love letter to From Software, and as someone who also loves FromSoft, it's super gratifying to me that there's a developer out here that loves From Software as much as I do. That's the sense I get from playing this. Okay, now I've recorded for like 32 minutes, so I'll probably wrap this up. My review thus far is that I'm loving it, I'm addicted to it. It has some of the most difficult combat in the Souls genre. It's up there with anything From Software's done, and I love that. I love that they went for uncompromising difficulty. You know, there's a summon, you know, that you can use on some of the bosses, or all the bosses, I guess, but I've only used it like once or twice because I was like, you know what, I'm losing my sanity, let's try it. And actually it went worse. So I actually preferred not doing it because it messed up my flow, and I couldn't like read their telegraphs nearly as good because I had this other person fucking attacking them, and I'm like, dog, I can't, you're screwing me up. So, but they do have that, and there's other mechanics that potentially could make them easier, but really they just stuck with, this is crushingly difficult. Not everyone's going to make it through this. And that's the biggest thing I'm really happy about. I'm genuinely happy that they were like, no compromises. We don't need to be the more accessible Souls game. No, we're going to make this shit difficult. And I don't agree that it's unfair. I don't agree that the perfect parry window is too narrow. It's narrow. Like, that's just what it is. It's narrow. I think people are complaining about it as if, oh, well, I don't know, I think it's like a glitch, it's too narrow. It's like, no, they're telling you, be good. Get good at it. And so I do find it funny, the Souls people that will say that about other things, but then about this, when it's difficult for them, they'll go, oh, well, I don't know, I don't think the frame data was enough frame data. And I'm like, dog, the developer is setting out, and they changed the perfect parry a little bit from the demo, so they are open to feedback. And that's where the final release, I consider this to be the one that they truly, like, this is. Now, of course, a patch could come out. You know, we haven't had a patch yet, so maybe there is a patch that will widen it. And if they do that, that's great. And if they don't choose to patch the perfect parry, I'm perfectly okay with it. That's like when From Software patches Armored Core, you know, or they patched the Baltius fight, or they patched Radon. Yeah, I didn't get all fucking mad about it. I was like, oh, cool, that's fine. I beat them before the nerf. I beat them after the nerf. And then they sort of half undid the nerf, and I beat them then too. That's fine. I don't care if someone beats them post-nerf. Gatekeeping that doesn't make any sense. like, just celebrate it, sure. Like, yeah, you beat the more difficult version, but to think that, like, oh, they're just making it less difficult because people were complaining. The casuals were complaining. I'm like, I don't think From Software has ever done that. I think I think they noticed that they were like, yeah, that's not really the attack pattern we meant to have. Okay, let's tone that down. And From Software bowing to pressure that something is too difficult, I think is a fantasy. I think that's them doing causation but not correlation. Like, they're assuming that that's what caused it, but that's not necessarily the correlation, right? So, I don't know. That stuff does frustrate me. Where I'm like, this is their vision, and I personally love it. I think I'm loving the perfect parry. I'm loving the combat. I'm loving the amount of different weapons. It's not like Dark Souls level of weapons. They're all somewhat special, and so it's a little bit more in between Dark Souls and a Bloodborne in terms of like weapon amount. But they're really awesome, and their movesets are sick, and the upgrades are awesome, and the boss weapons thus far have been fucking rad as hell. The bosses have been consistently getting more difficult, and there's mechanics that you're learning, and there's always different ways of conquering them, right? Like, I think that's the thing I've enjoyed the most, where it deviated from Sekiro a little bit, where I did feel like Sekiro in some ways was more set in how you would defeat something. Like, it was obviously intensely focused on the stagger. Now, some bosses were more Dark Souls bosses, but generally it was a stagger related thing. And in Lies of P, like, yeah, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do the stagger, but it's pretty cool. And I think you're certainly incentivized to do that, but you don't have to. The dodging is actually pretty decent. It's not Bloodborne style, but I'd still say it's serviceable. I've dodged a ton of attacks if I just time it right. And you just have to get used to that. And it's different, sure, but I've actually liked it. And there's the different equipment levels. I've seen people like heavy rolling, and they're like, oh, the roll sucks. I'm like, yeah, no shit. Maybe you shouldn't be heavy rolling. Look at your equipment load. And if you think the roll isn't good enough, go to a light load. Check it out. See the balance. And so there's a lot of things to mess with. And there's consistently all these different defensive parts. And so I can go down to these lower ones if I want less weight. But then I can also put on, an actual amulet that boosts my weight limit, like Havel's Ring. And then I'm like, oh, okay, well, for this boss, I need more resistance to disruption, shock, or break, or cool. But there's also one that's max health. And so this is, that's the same style that you'd have from like Elden Ring with like your, the talismans, and I don't know, I just feel like they're doing a really great balance of Souls mechanics, but specifically they've had ones where I'm like, dude, I hope this shows up in the next Souls game. It probably won't, but I would hope so. Regenning a flask when you've completely run out is some of the best. That's just an amazing design decision. I've beaten most bosses in this game by running out of flasks. Like, I'll have one flask going into phase 2, like a whole phase 2 health bar, or no flask sometimes. And I've been able to strategically play and basically clutch, right? And I start playing really well, and I can regen that one flask. Boom, I'm back in the game. Got it. Now I'm back down to 0. Okay, play really well. Get another flask. Boom. And I'm able to beat the boss precisely because of regenning that flask, by being aggressive and hitting enemies. Like, that is just, I love that. It's incentivizing you to be strategic, to be aggressive, to know that you're never out of a fight. I think that's just such a great addition to the Souls formula. I'm addicted to it. I think it's so, and there's that really satisfying sound when you get that, you earn that flask back. Oh, it's a game changer. It's just so sick. It's just one of my favorite things in all of Souls games. This is one idea that they had that's just, oh, it's so good. So there's things like that where I'm just like, damn, they did it. Like, that's just such a great mechanic. So basically this is me rambling for 40 minutes. God, is anyone gonna give a shit about this? Who cares? Well, let me know what you think. Have you tried out the game yet? Are you willing to try it out? Do you not want to try it out? Are there things stopping you from trying it out? I was talking to someone on Twitter today that they were complaining about the bosses and sort of like the different tells, the telegraphing, and some of the boss encounters. And I totally understand the criticism. This is the beauty of this game, is it's just like the Souls games, where I don't think it's for everyone. It's not. It's just like with any From Software game. I'm okay that not everyone plays it. Specifically the FromSoft people, I do hope that they give it a shot. Beat the first 2 bosses. So I'll leave you with that. Beat the first 2 bosses of the game, and then decide. Like, if you hate it at that point, then it's not going to be for you. But those 2 bosses, the first one is decently easy. You can get it down. It teaches you some things. But the second boss is genuinely still difficult and teaches you many of the mechanics in this game and will set the tone for this game's going to challenge you. And so beat the first 2 bosses, because that was basically the demo, right? That's where the demo ended. Very chunky demo. And if you can beat those 2 bosses and you find fun in it and you like what this game is doing and you've learned the mechanics, those first 2 bosses, I think you're going to have an idea if you're going to want to stick with this game. And personally, I think for From Software fans, I think you're going to want to stick with it, because this game is special. I think it's doing different things. I like the story that it's telling. It's a little bit more direct, more like Sekiro in that way, where I understand what's going on. And it's not told primarily through, item descriptions, which I personally love that about the Dark Souls series, but I'm okay that it's different. Here it's a little bit more straightforward, and you're kind of unraveling it, and it's cool. I wouldn't say I'm like super invested in it. The reason why I want to keep playing is not actually because of the story. And I mean this as a compliment. I am here. I keep thinking about this game. I keep loading it up. Even when I'm frustrated and I've been absolutely demolished by a boss 20, 30 times. It only takes like 30 minutes, and I go, let me give that another shot. Let me load that game back up. I gotta do it. I need that rush. And thus far, I've never had another developer give me that rush when I defeat a boss and finally conquer it. Like, I've never had anyone even get close to From Software. And I will say that round 8 with this game and NeoWiz, they have, like, these bosses, when I beat them, I am genuinely pumped and my heart is racing, and just no other developer's ever given me that. So I don't see that as a negative at all. I see that as, we're truly blessed as Souls fans if we can have another developer cranking out great Souls style experiences. Like, come on. Like, if this is their Demon Souls, like, if we think of this as their Demon Souls that From Software had, their first crack at it, I mean, come on. I mean, we got a bright future here for this developer, because this is polished. This is pretty much bug-free from what I've seen. I did have that stutter earlier in the video, but like, this is crazy as a first real attempt. Like, they did an MMO remake apparently before this, but I don't think anyone knew about it. I don't know if it was even a worldwide release. This is a South Korean developer, by the way. And I think there's a ton to love here, and I'm just absolutely addicted to this, and I can't wait to finish the other half again, and then play it again. And again, that's the biggest thing I've taken away from this, where I'm like, I'm going to keep playing this game over and over and over. And that's another thing I've never had from another developer. I've never been wanting to play a game repeatedly over and over like I have with the Souls games, or From Software in general. So that, to me, that's how I know that I'm loving this game. And I'll just end with, I know I said I was going to end like 500 minutes ago, but it's a love letter to From Software. I don't see it as mimicry. I don't see it as stealing. I don't see it as copying. Whatever word you want to use, I think that is an easy and ignorant way to look at it. I think it's the intent behind it. You can see the love that they have for these games, to to take all of this time and years of work and thousands of man hours to craft this experience, that's an insane amount of work. From Software would tell you that if they were, open to talking to the press generally, but they don't. Or when they have. I mean, game development is incredibly difficult, and this game is just an absolute achievement, And I'm not worried about, is it better than this or is it better than this? I just want to say I'm hopelessly addicted to it, and it's giving me the same rush that I've gotten from Software games. And I feel blessed that I can have that feeling with another developer and still be excited for the next, for the Elden Ring DLC coming out and whatever game they do next, and maybe a Bloodborne 2 and maybe a Sekiro 2. So I guess I feel blessed that we're eating good, and we might even have Lords of the Fallen be an awesome Souls experience. From the early impressions, Souls players and some of the reviewers were like, and even if they weren't Souls players, they were like, damn, this thing is awesome, this is great, and from the Souls people that I trust, Souls creators, they were like, this shit is awesome. And so that definitely gives me a lot of hope for it, where I'm like, dude, if you mean I can have another one, and hopefully they have some extra mechanics that will sort of switch it up. Like the 2 world system I thought looks really awesome. And so I don't know, man, I'm more of a positive person, and so I don't like all the focusing on, is it Bloodborne at home? Like, I don't know. I just think that sucks. So anyway, I don't know if anyone is going to find this video interesting. It's too long. It's 46 minutes. I talk too much. But you guys seem to like my unfiltered thoughts and talking and ranting. So I don't know. I would just say, try this game. It's on Game Pass. PC Game Pass even. And download it. See if you like it. Beat the first 2 bosses. That's my recommendation. Beat the first 2 bosses, and then come back and say, the game's not for me, and I'll totally respect that. That's fine. I just hope that people, give it a shot, Don't shut it down because you've heard things or you visually think it looks too much like this. Like, give it a shot. Because I think this developer deserves that. And I think they deserve the support of the Souls community. Because they're one of us. That's the biggest thing I get from this game is they're one of us. These developers absolutely love From Software, and we should be happy about that. I think that's great. There's disciples of Miyazaki out there, and that's awesome. That's cool. And I'm sure he'd be cool with it too. I don't see why he would be poo-pooing it. He'd be like, hell yeah. But anyway, thanks for watching. A like on the video helps a lot. Gets the video out there. I don't know that this video should be sent to a lot of people, because I'm pretty sure there are some opinions that people won't like, but agree to disagree. Well, we're all mature, cool people. So let's talk in the comments, Like, if you have, complaints about this game, I'd love to hear them. Talk about them. We could be respectful. Because I like to get into the nitty-gritty of, like, the different mechanics and how you approach the game versus how I approached it, and then we can learn something from that. I've learned people from, who are criticizing the game, I've learned, like, they tried that, got it, okay, cool, I'll remember that, and vice versa, right? So, yeah, let's talk in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already. I mostly post Dark Souls modding videos. But every once in a while I take a day off from that and record something else, or maybe don't record at all. But I usually like to record something. And, yeah, maybe share it. Maybe share it if you have someone that you want to have try Lies of P. And this is from someone who's modded Dark Souls games for hundreds and hundreds of hours. So if you think that that's an opinion they might listen to, cool. And if it's an opinion they wouldn't listen to, that's also fine. That's totally cool. I'm just a random dude on the internet. So it's not like I have any sort of, like, claim to unlimited Souls knowledge. Obviously not. But yeah, so thanks for watching. Praise the sun. Fear the old blood as well. We don't like the old blood. Don't be drinking that old blood. We know that makes you into a weird horse monster looking, Ludwig ass looking thing. And I don't know. I don't want to look like that. So I won't. See you next time.